All right, so this is what you don't know about what you already know. My name is Andrea Johnson, and I have no clue what I'm doing exactly, because I've never done a speech before, so bear with me a little bit. And to have a full disclosure, well, we'll just do this one. Vulnerability. It's my dog. This is kind of how I feel right now, so I was reading somewhere you just should be open and honest, and that's going to be best to get out in the open. That this might be a little rocky, but you guys want to bear with me, and it's one of those learning experiences that you can talk about in an interview, which is kind of what this whole thing's about anyway. So I'm going to kind of skip back here too. All right, has anybody ever felt this way before? Yeah. Especially in a new job, or you're just kind of like, all right, I don't know what's going on, and I'm not as good as this person, that person, but anytime you can always help out. And a lot of people get stuck because they are not confident in what they already know, so they're hesitant to even kind of get started. But I am hopefully, in this talk, going to teach you guys some tricks to be able to channel your past experiences, different things about yourself to be able to market yourself to other people, or even when you're just kind of stuck and don't know anything to do, go up and talk to strangers about some random things, and how to avoid things when you really don't know what you're talking about. And this is kind of probably for me more than you guys, of just, yeah, that's what I'm going to try to do today. So this might be you guys of smart people, obviously, all developers are in the tech industry, thinking, what the hell is this chick talking about? And this is going to be weird and awkward. It's totally cool. I'm an awkward person. However, the structure of this, I have points to make. The transitions might be kind of crappy. So we're going to have funny pictures of animals, and that's going to be kind of my cue of, this is something we're going to talk about. So at least, I played on Unsplash way more than I did try to write this. It was not a good idea. So, yeah. And if you don't know what Unsplash is, it's the best thing for stock photos that are free. All right. So this is kind of a thing for you guys. This actually keynote that I made is the same one I used when I was applying for jobs at Apple. So mini backstory. Used to work in video production, web development, and graphics for the state of Arkansas. Left to go work at Apple, teaching software. Did a little internship at Apple Corporate, tried to get Apple Corporate more, and didn't make it, so I left and did the GA course a year and a half ago. And now I freelance doing UX, and yeah. So this is a cool thing that I made when I was applying to Apple stuff, and it's basically talking about developers, so I just kind of have to show you guys. Plus, if you ever need any cool tricks on what you can do with Keynote, find me, because all this is Keynote animations. Oh, that's code scrolling. You can't really see it, but it's code. Okay, so fun animation, random skill that I have, might not ever be applicable again in my life, except for maybe right now, but still something cool that maybe, you might have some random thing that you use, and maybe the boss of your company is gonna go do this big presentation, and you can wow them and be like, hey, I know this cool thing that I can do that I saw somebody do at a conference, and they showed me how. So all things can be used for other stuff. All right, so how many people have something they geek out on? Good. Really hoping you guys would raise your hands, otherwise I was being really weird. So I geek out about a lot of stuff, but one thing I have for a long time, like even before I worked at Apple, was apps, like kind of an app addict to a little degree, and honestly, these are from about 2015. The screenshots were made, so let's just say I have no idea how many apps that I would have, because iTunes doesn't keep them in there anymore, which was kind of heartbreaking to me. But I did get over 1,000 on one of my phones once. And most of these, despite the fact that you can see Angry Birds, are not games. I kind of suck at games, unless they're like Sudoku or a puzzle. So a lot of them are just anything from your productivity apps, office kind of things, weather, activities, hiking, pretty much anything that's not a game, I probably downloaded it. Or anything that has to do with like little kids. So I geek out on apps a lot, and I used to work at Apple, so it was kind of like my intro of Apple, and also when I did the GA thing of like, oh, what's something unique about you? And I'm like, I have this many apps on my phone, and it makes me kind of weird. But it ended up kind of being something that people use. So when people go in the Apple store and they're like, oh, is there an app that does this? They're like, oh, well, ask Andrea. And so they were like, oh, you're the app queen. So I became known as the app queen. And it was a little weird, but I totally owned it because I do love apps and they're kind of awesome. If you do want to get in a debate over native versus web apps, totally game with that, because I have a lot of practice on these guys, especially like Kyle Corberly and Deucing and other people like that. Deucing's on my side though, I think. So one thing with UX, obviously, it helps out a lot because I know tons of UIs. So going through those kind of helps. All right, I can recognize something and be like, this is easy to use, this is not, because I've tried 1,000 of them. Plus the whole competitive analysis part of UX, where you download everybody's competitors, is kind of my favorite part because I get to download more apps, yay. It's probably how I got to over 1,000 actually. And it's just something that I geek out on, but it's really applicable, and now that I make apps, it's less weird. So sometimes your geekiness actually kind of goes into your career, sometimes it doesn't. But even just in general, just knowing software, like I was a software geek since I was a little kid. So I don't know how old you guys are, but in the 80s, I got my first computer from my dad. It was a Mac, and there was like zero software. So I remember going to the store, the computer store, and go into the back area that had all the software, and then going to the tiny little section that had Mac stuff. It was like maybe a few shelves. And then if there's anything new, I could grab it and be like, please, 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 will you get this for me? And sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. But I have psychoanalyzed myself and realized I think a lot of my software issues is probably just because it was one of the things like, oh my gosh, there's software. I need to get all the things and play with it because it was a scarcity whenever I was a kid. So it could be where it's from, I don't know. But it does help the fact that I know software pretty well, and it's also handy if you need to learn software really quickly. All right, so I promised funny animals, and this one is my favorite. He's like the background of my Trello board because, I mean, I open it up and it's like, you could be stressed out or a bad mood, but you got this little squirrel looking at you, and yeah. All right, so recognizing your hidden skills. So these are things that could be something that's a soft skill, but it could just be something that you do every day and you don't really even notice that it's something that you could bring to your job or bring to an interview or have some sort of story you could talk about in an interview. So this is an animal, but yeah, okay, just bear with me. All right, so your past experiences affect your perspective. So that makes you pretty unique too. So you might have experience doing different things, seeing different things, traveling the world, having different jobs, working with a variety of people, living in different places. I'm from Arkansas, so that kind of makes me pretty unique in Colorado because there's like 5 of us, I think. So being able to just relate to other people and use those skills where there could be somebody that maybe's worked in your industry that you might have just switched to for 10 years, but they've never worked in communications, they've never had to manage people, they don't have as much traveling as you've done. They haven't seen everything and done everything or geeked out on apps or whatever, anything that you have. So you can use that and talk to that whenever you're around people that you're networking with, to job interviews, to even saying you're in a meeting with a bunch of people and you're like, why am I here? I don't have anything to offer. You can always offer stuff. Plus, another thing is being able to ask good questions for those kind of things. So let's say you just started working at a job. Everybody else has been there for a while and y'all have already started making this product. Well, you come in and you see it from a new, fresh pair of eyes, which is golden. That's half of my job doing UX. We need like other people to look at it. So the things of just asking questions of like, well, why does it do this? If nobody can say why it does it, then you know you have a problem. Or it could be one of those things where, hey, have you guys considered this one scenario? And they're like, oh God, we didn't. That would be a big deal. Which kind of happened at one of my jobs last year, where it was this software for people that go in and clean up after a hurricane, like Hurricane Maria or whatever in Puerto Rico. And they hadn't thought about the fact that there would be no service there. So it's things that the guys can log their hours in and submit at the end of the day. But you had to have an internet connection to do that. So I was like, have you guys thought about, does this need service? And can you have it offline mode? And they're like, no. And I was like, I don't know if this is actually going to work in the field. So that got kind of moved up to the top of the list of things to do. Also, random picture that I took at the zoo, but in terms of perspective, he could be growling or doing something, you know, heroic and intense. He's really just yawning, but it's kind of just how you present it. It's like, hey, you know, you can just frame it a different way and then it comes pretty badass. So another thing that you can do is, oh, this is a transition slide, but another story really quick. So the skill that I acquired in the past year was not something that I meant to acquire, but I became another queen of something. Don't really know why the queen thing happens. I think it's because I introduced myself as app queen at GA class the first day and then kind of just stuck. But so I did a career switch from Apple. Pretty much have been living in Apple bubble, didn't really know anybody outside of people I worked with, even though I had lived here for 5 years, and didn't know too much about the community, UX, modern technology outside of Apple, which, I mean, I can explain iCloud to an 80-year-old, but I don't know anything about even like modern web stuff. So just getting out and going to things like the Develop Denver Happy Hour and any kind of classes people offer when they have those things of come hear this person talk. I signed up for everything. Like everything. Like every night of the week, I'm like, I'm already downtown. I'm just going to go to all these things. So people started calling me the networking queen, and that kind of stuck for a little bit. But it wasn't something I was really trying to get networking. I was just more insecure about myself of, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm trying to get in this new business, and I'm taking one of these classes, and I really hope I get a job when I get out of it. So I need to figure out what I'm doing and meet people and stuff. But I ended up being an expert in that because people were coming to me and asking like, well, what do you do? Or how do you get people to, you know, go out to coffee with you? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I didn't really think about the fact that that was a skill. But I have people that I can mentor now, and I could be like, all right, hey, well, you want to get a job at this place. Like, pretty sure I had coffee with you and told you about that. It was like, all right, well, you want to get a job at this particular company, find somebody on LinkedIn. But don't say, hey, I want a job at your company, because they will not only dismiss you, probably like put you on like an X list, so know that. Almost all of the, at least cold call LinkedIn things that I've done when I reached out was just basically just being honest and be like, hey, I don't really know much about this. I'm coming into it. Can I pick your brain? You seem like you know what you're doing, and that's awesome, and I admire XYZ, so will you get coffee with me? Can we do something? And that works. Like I got coffee or little meetings with tons of people at Apple Corporate just by doing that. One of the guys I think just became the head of marketing for Airbnb like last week. Before that he was head of brand at Ford and then did stuff at Apple and Burberry and Nike and things. But it's like I didn't even know that this person was going to say yes. Actually, I kind of didn't know how big a deal he was until I got into the meeting, and I was like, oh God, this is impressive. His name's Musa Tariq, so if you ever see anything online about him, he is like the best badass mentor person. I even messaged him a couple years later, and he's like, yeah, I remember you. And I was like, this is so special. So, but I mean, it's like you just got to be humble and just be like, hey, I'm going to be open and honest, and just, I don't want anything from you. I just want to pick your brain and have you talk about you, because supposedly people like talking about themselves. I hate talking about myself. So, which is also kind of weird that I picked this topic, but that's okay. I didn't know you had to do stories until a couple days ago, and it was like, tell a story. I was like, crap. Stories. On to our final, and I would say most important point. When you really, really don't know things, how to say, I don't know, like a pro. This is something I took away from Apple specifically. So when you get trained at Apple, or when you get hired by Apple at retail, they don't hire people that know what they're doing, that have a lot of experience, unless you have just a good personal experience. So you could be like a super Apple geek and know everything, but they might not hire you because you don't look like you could talk to humans. So I knew a lot of Apple stuff, and I guess I could talk to humans, so kind of mid-road there. But one way that they told us to work with customers when you get a question we don't know is we say, I don't know, let's find out. Or, I don't know, let's find out together. So the main thing for that is that you say that, but then you automatically know your resources. So whenever you don't know something, know exactly what you can do, where you can go to find out answers for anything, or be able to channel some ability of, hey, I can figure this out for you, or I can find somebody who can, or I can outsource it, anything like that. But something where you don't have them lose confidence in you. You want them to make sure that you're still a credible source, even after you say the words, I don't know, you're still credible, you're still a badass, you got this. But you obviously should be honest about it. So don't say you do know something when you don't, because if you haven't fallen into the trap of doing that, it sucks. Like, I wasn't gonna get up here and say, hey, I've been practicing this for 3 weeks, I'm gonna be awesome, because I hadn't. So this was also for if you don't know anything, and it's something of, let's say you interviewed with a job and they're like, hey, do you know, for you guys, probably be more like this coding language. For me, my first job doing video production, it was, hey, do you know Avid? I was like, no, I just know Final Cut Pro. And I've never used a Windows machine in my life. I didn't actually say that part, don't say part. But I told him, I was like, well, I really like software, and I'm really good at learning software because I play with it forever. And I know the techniques of editing. I know like the rhythm and the fundamentals of it. So I could apply that to there, and I basically was able to not look like a deer in the headlights too much, and got hired at that job, which was awesome. But it's, even those things, it's like, all right, know in the back of your mind, if you say you're gonna do it, you gotta do it and work hard at it. Avid, I still probably don't get, because I kind of convinced them to buy a Max for us and stuff, because I think they're better, but it's another topic. So we got through that, but even when I was trying to learn it, it was kind of a pain, and I realized I kind of hated Avid. So if that happens, you'll either get eventually, but let's say somebody wants you to do something that you don't want to do. Like, let's say, for instance, I will never take another job where they're going to force me to use a Windows machine, because that was kind of miserable. If that's part of the thing of like, hey, well, can you do this, or do you do this? And I'll be like, nope, and no, I don't want to. This is not going to work out. So be okay with that, and be honest with yourself, be honest with them, because there's other opportunities around there. And a funny gorilla.
I woke up late.
Do what?
I woke up late this morning.
Oh yeah, I woke up at like 4 because I was trying to write this. Yeah, I started a little bit last night. Actually, it was down the street from here. Me and one of my UX friends got together, and I was like, oh my God, I have this talk tomorrow, and I haven't done anything. And he was like, all right, well, here's your points. And like he got his like phone out and was like making notes and sharing with me, and I was like, okay. But I actually didn't talk through it, because by the end of that, I was like, all right, I'm tired. I really don't want to have to like say this out loud. So my Uber driver got like a lot of it on the way over here. By the way, Uber drivers are the best UX resources ever. So if you have something where you just want to bounce off stuff, I am big into guerrilla research, where you just kind of go out and ask people stuff. You can have a demo with you. You can just do research of like, hey, how do you think about driving the car? The app that had the, for the people that clean up for the hurricanes was supposed to be a gig economy app, so people would just be able to, hey, I don't have anything to do, I'm gonna sign up for this and make extra money. That was kind of the idea. So whenever I had Uber rides, I would just be like, hey, how'd you get into this? Why'd you get into this? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Things like that. So use your Uber drivers. They're good resources. Yeah. And even if you do have something where you try to follow the rules, you think that you're being badass, and you fail, like not preparing for a talk, things like that, that's okay, because you might start off the morning like this, but then by the end of the day, you feel like a badass chick, because doesn't that look like a badass chick? I think it does. And yeah, so you can learn from your mistakes, and honestly, the next interview I ever have, I'm gonna be like, so I did this talk at Develop Denver, and I didn't prepare for it, and it was super nerve-wracking, but the next time I do something, I learned that you should probably prepare, and you need to practice, and you need to do all these other things so that you're not, well, I hope I'm not making a fool of myself, but so that you can, give a better experience for everybody else that comes out, and make sure that people got what they came for. So, it's my contact. I'm on Slack too. And yeah, thank you for coming and putting up with my awkwardness. I appreciate it. And I'll be going to these things. I'll be at the thing tonight. So if you want any tips on how to get over your awkwardness, going to a bunch of meetups and stuff, I can help out with those too. And also, cheers a beer. Say, yay, you finished your first talk. So, cool, awesome, thank you.